Welcome to the Entrepreneur Gene. I'm your host, Laurie Barkman. Each week, we'll hear from founders and CEOs to explore key decisions they've made for growth, value creation, and challenges along the way. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, offering entrepreneur advisory services from transition to transaction. Don't forget to hit subscribe, follow us for the latest episodes, and visit thebusinesstransitionsherpa.com for more exclusive content. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Gene. I am thrilled to have this guest with me today. She is a nationally recognized PR and marketing expert. She's crafted content for some of the world's biggest brands like Amazon and Walmart. She is so motivated to do her part to empower other women and partners across different organizations and around the world. She's the recipient of numerous awards and recognition in PR and entrepreneurship. Please welcome to the show, CEO of the Motherhood, Cooper Munroe. Welcome.
Laurie, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, that's so cool. Let's dive into the very first thing I love to talk about, which is the name of the show, The Entrepreneur Gene. Cooper, is there an entrepreneur gene, and what does it mean to you?
There is one. In my own particular world and life, it's a matter of when it's tapped. My gene was born when I was around 40. So I started the motherhood. We incorporated around the time of my 40th birthday. And up until that point, I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur, but realized quickly that I was one. It was also a matter of where I was in my life with 4 little kids, and knowing that going into an office and asking for permission to go to a play at noon wasn't something that I wanted. So entrepreneurialism and being my own boss certainly fit where I was at the moment too.
That feeling of freedom, you were seeking a feeling, you didn't want approval to go punch the clock and working for the man, as people say sometimes. What was it about that point in your life? Was it really about this feeling of freedom, or was it something else about how you saw taking a risk and maybe something else changed?
The opportunity was there as well. So, the story of the Motherhood is a play on the word neighborhood, and it came out of an experience, writing a actually writing a blog post following Hurricane Katrina, and, realizing how powerful the tools were at the time. I mean, Facebook, Twitter, there weren't, social media wasn't even a term, and but blogs were growing, and wrote a blog post and a comment section that ended up delivering all these in-kind donations to the Gulf Coast, based on just one ask. So it was clear in that moment how powerful these tools were and were going to be. It was a crystallizing moment. The motherhood was born from that as a way to create a community to solve problems. And looking around for a business model, it took a while, but finally landed on the one that we is still in play today. But it was a great opportunity at the time. It took off really fast, so it was one of those great entrepreneurial moments where it worked.
It worked. And you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I think there are people that are in your world, as you've met many people around the country. Do you think that there are any particular attributes for women entrepreneurs?
In the world that we operate, the Motherhood is an influencer marketing agency. So each of the people we engage for, so a brand will come to us and say, "Hey, we want to do an influencer campaign," meaning we would like to engage a team of influencers to create content about a product or a message or a theme or a launch. And so we will put together what the campaign is. We can put together the strategy and then pull the right influencers with the right messaging together to implement on that strategy. And then they go and publish on their own platforms. And then it's reshared by the brand or the organization. But the people that we engage, the influencers, content creators, are each themselves entrepreneurs. So they're creating their own kind of mini media mogulness, and it's incredible to see. For a lot of them, they're driven by being community builders or bringing what they know to their audiences. So adding value and adding their expertise and sharing it in that way. And many of them are just born marketers and born communicators, even if they aren't trained as such. So it's, I would say, community building and marketing certainly are at the core of this group.
For yourself, as you leaned into entrepreneurship, I think there's always a maybe a perspective on the balance of time and treasure and how much you're putting into the business. At what point did you feel like that was the right balance for you?
One thing is to say about small business owners and entrepreneurs is that, boy, is that group the backbone of this country. Because it is time and treasure. It is spending your time, and it is taking huge risks to give opportunity to other people. And I that's very fulfilling, and I felt very proud of being able to do that. I At what point did I realize the balance? Did you ask about that? Or is when I realized I was calling my own shots. And, I mean, it is overwhelming especially when you first start a business, how much there is to do, and you're the one who's doing everything from beginning, A to Z. Uh, and once you can bring people on and hire a team and realize that you can take some time to think through and dream and strategize, and that's the moment where I really felt it.
So that leads to the next question, which is challenges that entrepreneurs are facing today. What's a challenge that you're facing in your business?
Well, agency life is not predictable. So figuring out how to have a more predictable revenue stream, because it is a bit of a roller coaster. Sometimes there's a lot of work coming in and sometimes not so much. So working on that, making it a little bit more predictable, uh, is a really a key thing right now for us.
More predictable stream of future cash flow. I've talked about this quite a bit in different workshops that I've done is a good thing for the business. It helps you obviously have more, as you were saying, more confidence in what's coming in the door. It's also very useful for building enterprise value. So I wanted to throw that in there. It's a very relatable challenge, is the other reason why I'm bringing it up because there's so many entrepreneurs that are facing that same challenge of having one-time revenue or project revenue as opposed to more consistent view for that. Call it productized service if we want to think about it that way in your industry. So in that sense, what would be some advice that you would have for other entrepreneurs who are trying to figure out this challenge?
Well, I come from it. I came to this business sort of more of had a big idea and a creative thinker. I'm not a process driven numbers person by any stretch of the imagination, but there's enormous value in that as it happens. So looking at what uh, our numbers are, what our win rates are, what we see coming in and when, and really doing the analysis has been incredibly helpful. I came into that kicking and screaming, but have found to and grown to really love it. Taking a hard look at what is predictable. How many pieces of business do we need to pitch in order to win X amount? What is our win percentage? Knowing that you can actually apply formulas and science is pretty freeing. So I would especially those who are not inclined to that part of your business. Uh, I'm glad I leaned into it.
Yeah, so many business owners are running on intuition, and you can only get so far. Hope is not a strategy, right? I'm so glad to hear that you're leaning on the team and resources to get those metrics, and use that to make some decisions, which is awesome. What is something that excites you about your industry, Cooper?
I love the storytelling piece of it. Absolutely love it. I love giving voice to people who don't necessarily or historically have a voice with those who are selling to them. You think about how has advertising or marketing worked to date, and It's top down, the Mad Men idea of there were, a handful of people on the top floor on Madison Avenue determining what we were going to buy and how we were going to think, up until very recently. And now there are there's a conversation, and the brands are listening to their consumers and talking to them and taking their feedback. And that really has never happened before until the last, say, 10 years. It's super exciting. And you can influence as a person who is going to be using a service or buying a product. You can push back and say, "Hey, I don't like that ingredient," or "I wish you did that X, Y, or Z." And there's a high possibility that that brand is listening. So it's a very exciting time in terms of consumers. Consumer is such a kind of statistical word, but people's power in what they're going to be investing in.
There's a lot of shifts in the marketplace, more tools, more dynamics with who's involved. It isn't just the Mad Men on Madison Avenue. It's really democratized marketing. So many people
Yes.
can be influential, and that's the business that you've built, which is really, really cool. If you love the insights on this show, you'll love the insights I share in my book, written for entrepreneurs like you who are building with your exit in mind. Take the next step in your business journey to make your business more scalable and valuable. Head on over to btsherpa.com/book to grab your free digital copy of the Business Transition Handbook. Or you can also click the link in the show notes, btsherpa.com/book. You hinted earlier about a transition that you had when you were 40, that you kind of left the corporate world and ventured into your own enterprise. Let's hear a little bit more about that. I'd love to pivot now. We've learned so much from you. Now let's learn a little bit more about you. What is the entrepreneurial origin story for Cooper Munroe?
I came out of public relations and marketing right out of school. So I lived in Washington, D.C. for many years and then moved to New York, worked for a big PR firm there. And then as I moved back home, once started to have kids, and I was writing for the local city newspaper. And there were these things called blogs popping up. And this is the early 2000s. Started to write a blog and discovered that it was this unbelievably innovative community of people. There were not very many women, especially women with children, who were blogging. It was a lot of guys writing about tech and politics, but not many women. And those who were, it was it felt revolutionary and certainly pioneering, because they were sharing about their lives in a way that wasn't common. I mean, I'd go to Barnes and Noble and stare at the parenting section, like, help me. And, or read Parents Magazine, and it's 10 steps to potty training. But it was probably written by someone who had never potty trained anybody. So here we are on these blog posts, and they're just sharing their lives and, how they're have all the balls in the air, and all these things that felt so real and helpful and solution oriented. So one, it felt, wow, that is things are changing. This is a very big deal. Um, in 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit and the levees broke, I wrote a blog post saying, "We all have so much stuff." It felt like there was something that we could do here. People are stuck on rooftops. The relief agencies and the federal government admittedly said they failed in this instance, but wrote a blog post that said, "Just post here in-kind donations that you have. We'll figure out how to get it to the Gulf Coast." Tens of thousands of donations later, we had a post that went viral, and we had donations from around the world. It was really exciting and thrilling, but it was an epiphany, is that these tools are changing everything. Here it is, just one simple blog post and a comment section. And now we see this all the time now, right? Between all of the different social platforms, there was no Facebook, no Twitter, no nothing. There was just this. And within a week, we were able to start to get these items to the Gulf Coast.
Amazing.
And that's how the motherhood was born, was that exercise in realizing that these tools were incredibly powerful, that you could mobilize. There's no hill we couldn't take without each other. It was 100% female driven, this whole exercise. Um, because, the early days of social media certainly were a matriarchy. And the motherhood came from that. And, it took a while to figure out a business model, and it took a while to serve. We built this community platform. Server costs ended up being pretty enormous, and needed a business model, and advertising really wasn't gonna work. But what we were building in the process was this huge network of what was very condescendingly referred to at the time as mommy bloggers, but they were the ones who were, figuring out, 1, how to use social media, 2, they were communicating with it very well, and they were already talking about products and services that they use in their own homes and telling stories around them, and how, what their recommendations are. So if you put at that time 10 of these bloggers in a room, they had more readers than NewYorkTimes.com. Uh, it was a force which was just starting to be recognized. And having built this network, and also having come out of corporate PR, I'm thinking, well, there's a bridge here. Let's build it. And a business model was born in that moment. And it went to one of the big PR firms, a global PR firm that had a client that was produced one of the top diapers. And that brand was celebrating 30 years as on the market. So I said to them, why don't we just get a bunch of these bloggers to go to, they were gonna be doing these events, live events. So why don't we get bloggers to go, and we'll do some on the ground correspondence coverage. Well, they loved the idea. We did it, and all of a sudden, the guys in the C-suite were like, "Whoa, people on the internet are saying nice things about us and telling stories, and we like this." So that's where we, just kind of took off internally with that PR firm, and then spread. And that was probably 2008.
Seems like so common now, right, to talk about influencers and people unboxing diapers and, goes viral. But back then it was new and you guys were on the cutting edge of it, which is really, really cool. If you could go back in time, Cooper, and give yourself some entrepreneurial advice, what would it be and when would it be?
Yeah, I would give myself a lot of advice. One is, it took a while to figure out what it was, that this kind of lightning in a bottle that we had. I knew that it had potential and I knew it was going to grow, but what I didn't know how to do was scale it. And it didn't seem too scalable, but in retrospect, it actually was. So I guess it would have been seeking out more advice, or looking at it from different perspectives and finding people that could help me do that is one. Um, the ownership structure of the business, I would have um, spent some more time and thoughtfulness around that. So I think it's just building the foundation, been a little bit more intentional about it, because we were just flying by the seat of our pants at the
You
time.
probably didn't know that 20 years later, you'd be doing a podcast and talking about the early days of the show, right? In the early days, we're just trying to figure it all out. You had lightning in a bottle. You were trying to bring a what to even call it. We didn't know it was a service. We didn't
There
know
was
what it
no
was,
name.
right? We didn't know what it
Mhm.
was. So here's this opportunity. How do we create a business around it? That's really, really interesting. At what point do you feel like you found that service market fit? Did it take 5 years, 3 years, 10 years?
Yeah, it took a good 5 years to figure out what the processes were, and what it needed to look like.
It's kind of interesting, right? We are so, I think for me anyway, I am self-admitted impatient person. And when you put me in charge of a company, I'm very I'm very much so kind of type A on this show, and otherwise you'll probably think I'm a type B person because I'm much more relaxed and obviously want to listen a lot. But it's there's in all of us there's probably this impatience that helps us carry forward, right? It helps us as an entrepreneur and want to take action and have a bias for action and get stuff done. And it can feel frustrating, right? When we're trying, and we're on this flywheel, or excuse me, not the flywheel, we're on a hamster wheel of trial and error, and things aren't working and we're spending all this money and then we're like, this ROI isn't there for me. What am I doing? Let's start over. It can feel really frustrating. So I
Mhm.
empathize, with that. I've heard that from a number of entrepreneurs. I can tell you from my own experience. Yeah, there's definitely the figure it out phase for a lot of companies. And then you get to that point where you're like, hey, this is pretty good and we're going to grow and scale from there. Um, did you have the right advisors around you to support you in that journey?
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, but nobody knew what this was. So, I mean, there was no term for it. We didn't even know how to describe it. And there was some skepticism around it as well. So there was a lot of convincing to do. I think what I would say also to myself is, um, I remember thinking, I feel like I'm going up a mountain with carrying a boulder on my back. It was that kind of those frustrating feelings, and realizing that those boulders get lighter as you have more experience. And I think I'd say to myself, "Hey, it does get, there's always gonna be mountains and there's always gonna be boulders, but they get easier to carry with more experience."
Kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
As
Mhm.
they get heavier, they're easier to carry with more experience.
Yep.
I guess we could integrate the business transition Sherpa metaphor in here somewhere, right? If
Mhm.
you're at least on a path, you're on a journey, and you're supported, and you're bringing your experience with you. That's a good thing. Um, as you think about the legacy of the motherhood, what's so important to you as you think about the next journey for the business, right? What would make you so proud to think about the legacy that the motherhood has left behind?
I love and am so proud of the fact that we paved the way and helped pave the way, and that from day one, we insisted that influencers were paid. Now, when we first started doing this, brand said, "Well, we'll give them a coffee cup, a mug, or some coupons." And said, "Nope, uh-uh. This is their time. They're investing in, there's overhead. They've got to get childcare and laptops and all that other stuff, and this is, to create this content is hours and hours and hours. No, we're paying them." And we committed to that. And I'm really, really proud of that, that we've always championed this and supported those entrepreneurs, those influencers in a way that not everybody was in the early days. I believe that we helped make a difference on that front in the marketplace, because if we were paying them, then others were gonna have to too.
Should be very proud
And
of that.
yeah, I'm very proud of it.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Cooper, if people want to learn more about you, learn more about the motherhood, what is a great way to reach out and find out more?
Cooper at themotherhood.com or www.themotherhood.com is our website.
All right. Easy to find, easy to find. Cooper, thank you so much for coming on to the show. It's been so great to have you.
Oh, I loved every minute of it, Lori. Thank you so much.
And to our listeners, thank you. And if you've learned something, made you think, why not like and follow the show and be sure to share it with a few friends. If you want to leave a rating and review, we would be so grateful and appreciative. Thank you so much. It will help others discover this content as well. Tune in next time to The Entrepreneur Gene. And thanks again for being part of the show. Hey, that's a wrap. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, working with entrepreneurs who want to escape feeling like a prisoner in their own business and to eventually let go flawlessly. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to help support the Entrepreneur Gene, I'd encourage you to leave a rating and review. Ratings and reviews truly help our show grow and get in front of more entrepreneurs just like you. If you do leave a rating and review, we'll be so happy. Take a screenshot of it, send it to my email, Laurie@btsherpa.com, and we'll send you a free digital copy of my book, The Business Transition Handbook. And we'll also enter you to win one of our monthly swag boxes. For show notes, including links to everything in today's episode, be sure to visit btsherpa.com. Also, as a reminder, you can watch this full video interview on our YouTube channel. for the Business Transition Sherpa. While you're there, be sure to check out videos from our award-winning podcast called Succession Stories. We'll see you next time on The Entrepreneur Jane.